Hear us out. Hear us out.
Hear us out.
Hear us out.
Hear us out, man.
Hear us out.
Hear us out. Hear us out.
Hear us out.
Hear us out. Yo, okay. Hear me out? No. Hear you out. Hear me out. Hear us out.
Hey there, you are listening to WPPM 106.5 FM, Phillycam Community Radio. And for our TV viewers, thanks for watching us on Xfinity 66, 966, and 967, along with Verizon Fios 29 and 30. The Hear Us Out crew will be discussing gender identity and sexuality in this episode, and how discrimination in society shapes our pronouns and gender expression. This is a special two-part roundtable discussion with community guests Andrea Lawful Sanders, Colleen Garrett, and Adley. Listen as they build bridges of understanding in a safe space to speak their truths.
Sure. Hey everybody, my name is Keish. I don't even know how to explain myself, but I am me. If you know me, you know me. Pronouns, I don't have any preferred pronouns, but she, her is fine, or they, them, and yeah. I love Black people.
I'm Sam. My pronouns are she, her. I will not really be participating today. I will be in one question, but because I don't have the personal experience, and I don't want to step on anybody's toes or make anything inappropriate, so I will just be here.
My name is Jay. Pronoun he, him. Sometimes that guy over there, but yeah, just great. How to explain myself? I would say just up and coming artist, I guess, aspiring film director, aspiring screenwriter. And one of my goals in life is to be Cuba Gooding Jr. for the youngest African American person to win an Oscar. He did it at 29, and I'm trying to be 28 when I do it.
Okay. Hi, I'm Monni. I major in acting, film industry. I go by him, but I don't really care what you call me. Just don't call me a she. That's it. So yeah.
Hi, my name is Adley. I'm 19. I am all right. So yeah, I'm 19. My pronouns are he, they. I'm an aspiring like socialite brand. Pretty much just me. I consider myself to be gender nonconforming, and I am a leftist. And so yeah, and basically my overall goal someday to be a full-fledged activist and to be a great example for Black people like me, or just or just any kids in general. And yeah, that's it.
Hey everyone, it's nice to meet all of you. I'm a guest here because of Sam. Love her, she's amazing. I go by he, him, and I'm 18.
So good afternoon to all of you. I am Andrea Lawful Sanders. I am the mother of two grown Black men. They're 25 and 29. My pronouns are she, her, and Queen Mother. That's it.
I love it. Thank you so much. So we appreciate all of you sharing your time with us today. And this Hear Us Out conversation, I'll also say, I'm Stephanie Renee. My pronouns are she, her, and I am kind of the wrangler of today's conversation. And we thank you all for joining us. So I think that a question that Jay posed is a good way for us just to jump in and get some feelings about sort of where we are as a society, because we are just a little bit more than 100 days into our new presidential administration. And there were some things that were said during that campaign that might have been considered offensive, particularly to members of the Black community, about our responsibility to vote for him. But we've also had 3 months and some change now to sort of see what new direction, if any, our country is going in. So I'm curious, especially for some of you who may have been first-time voters in this election, to talk a little bit about where you think we are as a country. Go ahead, Adley.
Hi. So so a little bit about me. So I'm working on like my citizenship, so I'm not allowed to like vote yet, but I will be soon. So but I do pay a lot of attention to the election and stuff like that. And so the way that I see our country like is right now, it's I think, I think we're healing, we're doing better, sort of. I'm saying it's a little iffy, but I'm just saying I'd say it's better than what we had before with our former president. But yeah, so I think, I think, the country is healing, but like we're moving at a slower pace than I would like, what I'm saying? And so it's just the way I say, like, people are starting to be more woke, I guess, than usual, if that makes any sense. And a lot of it is performative, and a lot of it's like true, like true, like passion for change and stuff. And so I'm saying, like, at a point right now, I think a lot of people think, like, a lot of people, in my opinion, from what I've seen, a lot of people think that like the worst is already over because we have Joe Biden in the office, not Trump. But I simply don't think that's true. I'm saying, like, we had to settle for Biden. I'm saying he wouldn't. I'm saying, like, I don't consider myself like a Democrat nor a Republican. I'm not even I'm not conservative either. I consider myself to be anarcho-communist. So for me, like, I see the world differently, and like the way that we're going right now, I think we need to make like faster and steadier progress. You know what I'm saying? And I think, yeah, so we're going in a positive direction. So like I recently, I saw that he reversed this discriminatory bill against transgender members and LGBTQ peoples, which was a great step forward for our community and stuff like that. So I think that's where we're at right now, and that's how I see it.
Me personally, I feel like we're already like 100 days into Joe Biden campaign, right? More like his presidential run. And so far, I just feel as though nothing has been done yet for Black people. Like, I know, like, we had to choose lesser of the two evil, last November, but I still feel like we should still hold this man accountable for those 100 days. Like, after the convention, Derek Chavez, after his convention, I feel like that had been the perfect time to announce the bills for like protection for Black people against police or just hate in general. And I just feel like he missed out on that. All he did was call the family. All he did was call the family and say, like, yeah, justice will prevail. But so far, this been a thing for centuries for Black people. And I just feel like it's all talk, no action from Joe Biden so far. Like, I know he's trying to get the pandemic under control, but nah, I just need more. I just need to see more from him.
I like the way that you framed that conversation in this idea of he had a moment, right? He had a platform in which he could step forward and introduce more progressive bills that would take people in consideration, people that were largely responsible for allowing him to be elected. So that kind of leads us back to Adley's point about where we are in decision making and where we are in society in acknowledging some of these things that we know are plaguing various communities. And one of the things that I think people my age and older are having a really hard time with is some of what we asked you all about in terms of your preferred pronouns and how discrimination is playing itself out in how people see themselves, sexually or gender-based, and the terms that folks are using to describe themselves. And so I'm wondering if we can enlist everybody who's on the call today to help us with what people call the alphabet soup of gender identity. Because there are a lot of terms that people use that I don't think folks understand. And understanding is the first step toward getting people to be much more comfortable using terms and using people's preferred terms. And so we'll take volunteers if we can begin with that. And Keish, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask to help. One of the things we talked about in preparation for today was cisgender, and helping people understand exactly what that means.
Yes, I'm going to do the best I can because I don't know the definition. I just know this from my experience. Cisgender, what it means to me is somebody who was born into a body that they accept and is straight. So it's the body you was born into that you still claim, if that makes sense. I think that's the best way to explain it. Is there any other term I should explain?
There is a pretty sharp distinction, I believe, between people understanding queer and people understanding trans. Can you help us with that? And anyone else who would like to jump in for that, please?
Yes. So this is the conversation of gender versus sexuality. So gender is actually, I don't want to mess this up. Gender and sexuality is different. Sexuality is the sexual attractiveness or the person that you want to perform with. So you can be trans and be queer. You can be trans and be bisexual. You can be cis and be queer. Queer is just a term that explains sexuality, where cis explains gender. And yeah.
Adley, feel free.
Yeah. So so to me, I agree with a lot of what she said. So to me, cisgender so cisgender, like we should said, being in a body and accepting it and as is. So and then so for me, the definition of queer, it's if queer is, to me, it's an umbrella term for a lot of different things under the LGBTQ community and stuff like that. And so with so I'm recently started learning a lot about gender conformities, gender ideologies, and sex and stuff like that. And so I've learned that the way that learned that gender identity is a social construct and stuff like that, and that it's on a spectrum. And so I think that we should be educating people on that first, always. That my bad. So being you can be trans, I'm sorry, I keep starting a lot, it's just my anxiety. But gender and sex two different things. So from what I know is sex is biological and gender is cultural. And so I've heard people describe gender as a performance. That's the best way I could describe it. Gender is being for performance, and then sex is something that you were sex with with your chromosomes and what you're born with. So there's people don't like to acknowledge that there are different gender identities and sex identities and stuff like that. So I've learned about I know there's male, female, intersex, and there's one really cool one. I'll make this super quick. There's one person that I saw on TikTok talking about their identity. So they have this, I forgot what the syndrome is called, but it's called but basically they have their chromosomes are 43 XXXY or something like that. And so they had from what I remember, they had the breast of a woman and then the appendage of a man. And so when they were first born, and they were taught to be raised as a male and stuff like that. And so that's a lot. That's just knowledge on gender and stuff like that. Sorry if that didn't make any sense.
No, it did. If you don't mind, just continuing in that, I would love if you could help us understand your decision to be referred to as he and they.
Yeah, of course. So Yes, my decision to be referred as he, they is pretty recent actually. Um, since um, since like like with throughout like my childhood and stuff like that, I didn't really get to I didn't have the space to explore my gender identity, my sexuality, and all things on that different spectrum. So for me, the he, yeah, so he, they, like those two, like it represents. I like to think that I embody both masculine and feminine energies. You know what I'm saying? And so my overall goal in life is to just be more androgynous and stuff, and and not have to fall into that concept of gender. So the they is for the they them pronouns for me represent that more more androgynous side of myself, that more both masculine and feminine, or somewhere in the middle for me. And as I'm growing older and stuff like that, I'm learning a lot. And so I've decided in the future at some point when I feel most comfortable, I'll be going as fully they them pronouns, and going out of my way to fully express fully express myself without having to worry about the binary or um what people define gender as and stuff. And that's kind of the goal and stuff.
Thank you for your honesty. Ms. Andrea?
I feel like you all could teach a lesson in what we need to know. I watched my sons grow up in high school and watched them and their friends talk about all of what you're discussing now. Fortunately for me, my mind and my heart was open to having those conversations. So, as a direct result, I would get the talk. My sons will come and say, such and such told their mother that they were gay or queer or non-conforming, and it became this huge thing. And so I am wondering, for as many adults that are opening their hearts and learning, because you young people, I need you to understand that because of you, we have a different country. Our country is shifting, right? You took to the streets. And listen, I had some serious arguments with some old folks my age. And I was like, let me explain something to you. Because when you first started taking to the streets, when all the stuff was going on with the shootings and the killings, it was white children, black children, all kinds of young people. And the news would report just the black children out there, the black people. And the white children were like, listen, we're out here. Our peers are being targeted in schools. They're being targeted when we get in the cars with them, the police officers. And so you have literally, I need you to understand how much you have shifted what is going on in this country today. Hear me when I tell you, right? You made people listen to you. You stood up. I met a young man in Washington, D.C. who had graduated from Howard University who said, I can't even afford a one-bedroom efficiency. I can't afford to pay for health care. My tuition was $44,000 a year. Right? I graduate. I am earning a job that doesn't make as much as $44,000 a year. And he says, we want certain things from Joe Biden. I watched adults, grown folks, jumped all over him. You want more of the same. So what I'm learning from listening to all of you is we have to open up our hearts and pay more attention to what you're saying and not just let it gloss over, right? To use your pronouns with respect, to give you the dignity, and to learn from you. All the things that you're teaching us, because there are things I'm learning, like the sister. You should have seen me writing. I was like, hold up now. All right, sex, gender, cisgender. This is great stuff. And you need more of a platform where more adults can hear you. Because let's talk about the black church. Let's talk about some of the islands. I'm from Jamaica. I don't even want to tell you. I don't even want to tell you how I had to jump in the necks of some folks, and I was like, shut your pie holes, and listen to the young people, right? So it's a lot, and and you have to literally have a sense of self, which is something that I'm seeing in all of you. You're stepping up and you're opening your hearts and you're opening them. Adley, how old are you?
Oh, sorry, I'm 19, about to turn 20.
You better come on with it. I know grown folks. who are in their 60s and 70s, who believe what Adley believes, who were thinking about these things when they were little young children, but were told to stuff themselves in a box, who went and got married when they shouldn't have gotten married because they loved somebody else, who didn't love the body that they were in, but they kept sitting in the bodies that they were in, and they're now 60 and 70, and we're going, so you just spent your whole life in the imposter syndrome. You know, you all have stepped outside of the boxes and said, forget y'all. Might not like me, might not love me, but I'm going to be who I am. Do we understand all of it? No. But it behooves us to listen to you and hear you all the way through. I applaud all of you. Lord, I'm tired, but this was good. This is good stuff. Keep talking. Thank you.
Thank you, Queen Mother. And so with that now, as a backdrop, one of the hard questions that I think we sometimes sidestep in conversations like this, but are important, is how do we create a space for allyship when we hear this, right? You all have identified that it's very important for you to be seen and heard as you want to represent yourself in the world. And so there are people who may not understand it, like Ms. Andrea said, but want to be able to stand with you and fight for your ability to represent yourself as you do, against violence, against the way that you get priced out of being able to live your fullest life. What can you tell us about the role of allyship and how people can get in the fight and take up their rightful space in the fight, understanding what that is?
So from my point of view, being a white ally, I know that it's very important to educate yourself because that's how you're going to learn. That's how you're going to be able to help people. I personally post a lot on my Instagram trying to educate other people in hopes that they will read what I'm posting because I get educated a lot through there, as well as reading articles. So social media is definitely a big step in educating yourself and being an ally. I also think you can know your boundaries. Just like I did here, you know, I didn't want to make anyone seem uncomfortable. And so I thought it would be inappropriate for me to talk about issues that don't really pertain to me. I just think you need to acknowledge your privilege and you can educate others and let them know, hey, you have privilege, educate yourself, please help us in this fight.
Thank you, Sam. I see a lot of nodding. Do people want to add to that? Because remember, we're talking about when it's okay to create space or take space. As a lot of this protesting, these conversations, all of this is happening. And I think there are more people who might want to participate, but don't know that they have the right to create space or take space up. So the same way that you all been educating us on terms and what have you, help us understand how allies can participate.
So wait, let me just put my hand down. So in addition to what Sam was saying, when it comes to educating yourself, I think that, especially from personal experience, I think that in the education system, I think that is also kind of the first place to really take into consideration what it means to be an ally, because your peers are always right there with you, very close to you all the time, whether it's your students, and then you also have like teachers who are also right there with you all the time. And your teachers are kind of like the secondhand people who raise you in a way when you're a child, because, you know, you have to go to school every day for like 6 hours a day. And then you're with these adults who are teaching you things that you're also going to need to know, especially when you get older and then you ultimately end up going to college or whatever. And I think that if you're in an educational system or an educational environment where you don't feel like you're being represented, or you're not being treated as if you're supposed to be in that space, or you're not being treated as if you're wanted in that space, I think that can really hinder children, especially as they end up growing up and how they move on in their educational life. And then ultimately what they end up being when they leave the regular first few years of basic education. And I think if students aren't, especially because I went to a predominantly white district, I think that if students aren't held accountable for things that are clearly not okay, because the teachers don't feel that they are not okay, or they don't want to address it because they don't want to get involved, or they don't want there to be drama, or whatever the case is, I think that is the beginning of learning allyship. And I think that's kind of the fault of a lot of teachers when it comes to teaching that, because they're not there to just teach us math or just to teach us English or how to read and everything. Like, they're teaching students, young students, how to eventually become adults and as they grow up. And if they're not teaching kids also about life and about allyship and what that means, especially during this climate right now with kids in middle school, high school, and elementary school, then how will what we're trying to change right now, how will that continue to change if we don't even have teachers that are our allies?
Excellent. Thank you for that. And we're going to come back to that specific point in just a moment. But Colleen, please share.
I just wanted to add on to what both Summer and Sam were saying. With both of these experiences, I think at the main core is invalidation when it comes to Black people in general and allyship. It's all a matter of validating their experiences, because in school they don't really emphasize the importance of understanding individuals as peers, because we all have different perspectives and different backgrounds, but as a whole we kind of collectively come together and create this unique environment where we are all able to harmonize together and understand and accept that we're all different. But back to the invalidation, like Summer was saying, teachers don't really create this environment where, you know, students need to talk about, you know, the repercussions of hanging out with a person of color, because there are repercussions for hanging out with a person of color. Like there are certain experiences like microaggressions, those aren't even commonly acknowledged, and there are a multitude of those experienced in the school, and they just go unnoticed. Like I'm trying to think of a specific one, like hair. Our hair is kind of normally demonized and believed to be unprofessional, and you know that's kind of played a huge pivot into the real world as well. Within you know, news anchors, you see them on the news kind of not being able to express themselves freely. But I just think it's a matter of invalidation, and you know, it needs to be acknowledged.
Thank you for that. So that, I'm sorry, Adley, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I'll make it super quick. Yeah, I agree with everybody's point. Like from personal experience, like being invalidated is so harmful to like a person's like mental health and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Because like, you know what I'm saying? Like as like, because it's important to like educate people and like make open spaces. Because what I've seen is like a lot of a lot of these terms, like for in my opinion, like a lot of these terms that we have that we have now and that we use, you know what I'm saying, and like I'm saying, like that can throw some people for a loop. And a lot of the times like I've seen people like build like superiority complexes of what they know, you know what I'm saying, and to try to like put themselves on the pedestal above others that are less educated, instead of like actually sitting down and like educating people and stuff like that, you know, and like making room for allyship is like so important, you know what I'm saying? We're all intersectional identities and we're all marginalized identities, you know, to like have a sit down where people just listen and you try to understand, and that we make it so we make a space that it's so that like you could ask any question, no matter how dumb, speak your opinion on, no matter how how bad it could be perceived, you know. And I think that's what's really important for allyship. And like back again, like we should have these, the thing like with our country is like we don't like people are claiming to be progressive, but we're not fighting. I don't see a lot of people fighting to have these kind of like teachings about critical race theories, critical gender theories, and like in like classes. You know what I'm saying? In order to like educate children, I've spoken to parents where like we're talking about LGBTQ issues and like stuff about like their own child's like like identity and stuff like that and what they're kind of ready for. And a lot of the times like it's been made out to be like a mature topic. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't know if that makes any sense. Like when it comes to kind of like LGBT to those issues, like it's not seen as something that can be taught at an early age. It's like it's been made to be like a super mature topics that only adults can understand, and a lot of kids miss out on that education because a lot of parents are like holding it back, withdrawing from it because it seems too grown too much, and like it's just a lot of stigmas around it. I don't know. But yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Andrea.
To Adley's point, some years ago, I was a sitting school board member in a district and was asked to meet with a father and mother who had a then 4-year-old son who was getting ready to go into kindergarten that identified as transgender. 4. And I remember sitting with them, and they tried everything. They tried everything to get this young girl to stay in wear boys' clothes, to be a boy, and they decided at that point that they were just going to have her birth certificate changed to a girl's name, get her into school. How I came in was that I then needed to speak to the other school board directors around what was getting ready to happen. Now, let me just tell you how brave that was in that particular time, right? 4 years old, going into kindergarten. And so they worked it out. I had to have a come to Jesus moment with a few of them who, adults became very insensitive about, boys don't belong in the girls, all kinds of foolishness. So shut it down. This is what allyship looks like. So the child was able to go into the school in her rightful feeling of being a girl. So she's been a girl in the school. Now, I got to tell you, some years later, I went on about my business, do what I'm doing. Some years later, I go to a school board meeting, long after I got off the school board, and there she was winning an award. And the father said to me that being able to live in her true body, what she believes to be, who she wants to be, has been so enlightening. She's living openly and freely. You understand what I'm saying? And that started, and so the allyship comes in the form of not just being understanding, but standing in the gap where needed, because we have a certain amount of privilege, all of us, to do certain things. Had I not stepped in the gap and said I can help in some way, who knows what would have happened? You know what I'm saying? So we have to hear, and young people, parents don't even want to admit that their children are gay, much less LGBTQ non-conforming. They just don't, they sit around and they pray over it and they talk all kinds of yin yang. No, I'm giving you the truth, right? They talk all kinds of yin yang, and then they try to hide the child. Well, where's such and such? Well, the child went off to somewhere. But the bravest thing that a parent can do is to reach the child, talk to the child, and say, how can I support you? It's life altering on either side. It truly is, right? But that's where it is. So yeah. This is deep for me. It's deep.
We appreciate your input, and that kind of brings us around to this idea of we've spoken about some very clear forms of discrimination, right? We've talked about how it plays out racially. We've talked about how it plays out in gender identity and sexuality. Where do we think we are as a society, say, compared to 20 years ago, 50 years ago, right? We talk about the civil rights movement, what we understand that to be in the late 60s, mid to late 60s, compared to now. Where are we as a society? Is it worse? Or is it just that we have more tools to talk about the discrimination now, also to engage other people in the fight against it? What do you all think? Summer?
So I think that this is actually really interesting because there's a comedian and his name's Godfrey, and he does like lives sometimes. And he was talking, his topic was more about police brutality, but what he said was very true. I don't think any of this is significantly worse or better than years ago. And I do stress the word significantly because I think it's just now we have tools like cameras to record things now. And I don't think that it's worse. I think it's just a lot more visible than it really ever was before. And I think with the power of cameras, as small and singular of a thing that it is, I think it's helped us, I guess you could say, become more bold in a way and make us more confident about the outcomes of exposing all of these problems, and not just talking about police brutality or just racism in general, but the discrimination against the LGBTQ community and the Stop Asian Hate and Black Lives Matter and all of these things that have seriously escalated, especially during this year during the pandemic. And honestly, yeah, I don't think any of this is really a lot better, but I think that it's helping us, that since we have cameras, it's helping us be more comfortable with actually speaking up and knowing that there is a huge crowd of people that are always going to be behind us, that will be our allies. And I think there's always going to be that side that is going to be against what the people who are trying to move forward is trying to say. And I don't think that will really ever go away, in my opinion. But I think it's just a lot more noticeable that we do have a lot of allies out here, even if they're not in our direct community, they're here in the world. And I think that has just been really helpful. So I guess social media also adds to that too, not just cameras. But yeah.
Okay, I see a lot of nodding on everybody else's screens. And I want to just add, just as a historical note, Summer, that Dr. King, and I know people get tired of hearing about him because it seems like he's the only historical figure we know. But when it comes to the civil rights marches and the brutality of the 60s, he was very insistent upon inviting the media to come see the marches, because he knew that people who lived in the South, who were experiencing that kind of discrimination on a regular basis, they knew what it looked like, they knew what it felt like. But people who lived in places like Philadelphia, who thought themselves kind of above it all, would feel more if the cameras showed the dogs, if the cameras showed the fire hoses, if they showed what was actually going on in the streets during the protests. And so I hope that, you all feel some kinship to the elders in that respect, that, we didn't have phones with cameras back then, but at least the news cameras helped to expose that level of brutality back then, the same way that your phones do now. There's some connection. With that though, so we're saying that it's not necessarily worse, it's just seen more, it's discussed more because we have all these other tools at our disposal. I think what you say about school is an even sharper kind of conversation, because if you're spending that kind of time there are certain rules that we agree to in educational spaces, where if you aren't upheld and supported, the damage that does to people who are learning the rules can be that much more significant. And I wonder, for those of you who have experienced, as Kaleem said, microaggressions or just flat out documented instances of discrimination, if you could speak a little bit more about that, because people need to understand how that activist spirit can sometimes be stoked by what you're experiencing in a place that should be fair, equal, and uplifting. Again, don't everybody speak at once.
Oh, I wanted to speak on this.
Okay.
I had my hand up, but it was more so for the allyship. So when it comes to allyship, I feel like I'm just saying, I need to call it what it is. White people are doing the most, and they do not belong in the front of these different movements. And the media, the white media also does not belong in the front of these movements. So when it comes to the white media, I feel like we need to just let Black people tell their own stories. We already have people that are trying to be directors, filmmakers. All of us in here are trying to be in the film industry, and it's hard enough for us to get those jobs, and then you want to come to these protests and exploit us and basically film us as we're looters, we're animals, da da da. Shout out to Fox News. But like, yeah, the second part is when it comes to these movements, these people that are studying sociology, anthropology, these white people that are studying this, these white people that are studying this, these are the same gentrifiers that have the Black Lives Matter signs in their front yards that are in our communities. And I think it's like really irony, and it's like a weird paradox. But yeah, I think we need to like, white people need to step back in the sense that why are you chanting African chants? Like the rhythm is not even supposed to be, that's another story. Like, why are you chanting African chants that come from our ancestors? And it's like, why are you leading movements and why are you exploiting us and our bodies? And it's like, yes, you are supposed to be on the front lines because we marched enough and you should risk your body, but you should not be like exploiting us in a sense where it's like you need to put your money where your mouth is. It's like, if you care about us, put your money where your mouth is, and also put your body where our bodies are being arrested. And also, I don't know. I don't know if white people belong in Black movements because it's like these anthropologists and these people that are going to these native indigenous lands, it's like you must respect the land that you're on. Like that's the first step to being an activist. It's like Black people are always acknowledging Native Americans, but it's like white people will never acknowledge Black people. And it's like we're going through a genocide when it comes to gentrification. So yeah, that's that.
I agree with what everyone was saying. And I think the main issue with all of this is with white people in general, I think it's a matter of they don't understand the issues that we're going through. No matter whose shoes they try to put themselves in, they'll never truly understand the Black experience. And I think the problem with why they do want to put their face at like the top of the movement is because they see kind of all the things that we had to cultivate. Most of those who are African American, because our culture was stolen from us, they see the things that we have to cultivate, kind of create our own culture, and they try to profit off of it because of the greatness that it's impacted.
Thank you, Summer.
Yeah, so I think kind of going back to the whole educational environment aspect of this topic, I think that so for me personally, there were a lot of like incidents that happened in my district. I can go on and on and on about them. And I think that with every incident that I can think of right now, I can honestly list like 10 off the top of my head immediately. But I think it's so weird because kind of just like what Kaleem said, I don't think that they understand how deeply rooted these problems actually are, because they're not just issues that just started recently for us. Like these are issues that our parents had to deal with, our grandparents had to deal with, our great-grandparents, and then so on. Like this is now become a problem that is almost a part of a cultural lineage. And it's almost as if they never really want to acknowledge that in a way. And because for example, for my district, they started a whole entire Black Lives Matter march, but they would have things happen at our school, like when they had a play and they went through The Wiz, they had a white student call it the ghetto version of The Wizard of Oz. So it's just like, you cannot start a Black Lives Matter march and have incidents like that at your schools and act like we're just going to lead this because we know what these students need. Like, no, you do not. You do not know what we need. You are not, whether you are my teacher or not, whether you're my principal or not, you will never truly and genuinely understand what I need, because you're not Black. And that's just simply that. And I don't know why that's such a problem for them. Like, it's not saying that you can't be a part of this. It's saying it's not your place to lead this. It's not your place to take over this. It's not your place to say, I'm finally here for you, when there have been several incidences that you have let slide so many times. And it's just like, it's disrespectful in a way. Like, you're already disrespectful to us when we come into the schools, and now it's just insulting. Like, during the pandemic, it was just absolutely insulting. And it was just like, no, I'm not going to that. Like, no, I don't want to support what you're subconsciously doing. No, not subconsciously. You are consciously doing it. You absolutely know exactly what you're doing. So no, I'm not supporting that. And I don't know why that's so confusing to them.
Yeah, I agree with everyone was saying. I think like the one key phrase that I thought of when we was all having a discussion was nobody don't want to be on the wrong side of history. And that's how I see it with white allyship, because they don't want to be on the wrong side of history. Like, they don't want their ancestors, like they don't want to feel the burden of their ancestors, what they did in the past, and they trying to right their wrongs while leading this charge. And it's just like, y'all just can't do that. Like, y'all can acknowledge the history, acknowledge what happened. The only way you can support us, you just can't lead this charge. And I had like a similar situation, something similar with Summer, where I was in Valley Forge, the military college. One of my sergeants, this was my first year, he swore up and down that he support Black people, Black white man, all this good stuff. But the second the whole Colin Kaepernick thing happened with kneeling on the kneeling during the Pledge of Allegiance, the whole thing, he just went ballistic and he just couldn't believe it. He said he should have lost his job and all this stuff. But we saying I'm in the back like, but you said it was like a good thing, bro. Like like what's going on? Now your tune is switching. But yeah, it just, I don't think they should be like leading this fight for like justice and equality. But it's good to have the support. Like, we definitely do need support, but like leading it, nah, like, that should be up to us.
So, as a final question, and I feel like there is more that we need to mine, and we just can't do it today. But I hope that you all will remain open to opportunities in the future to share your thoughts as openly and honestly as you have today. If you can, each of you, in just a few sentences, share with us your vision for what an equitable society looks like, feels like. What is your wish for what we should be building towards?
Sorry, I did not know my camera was off the whole time. That's why I didn't see me. I was trying to speak, but I didn't know that's me. Sorry for the change. I had to go into like a quick meeting. But how can I just answer this? I see it as more stressful, because I tell people all the time the only way for this, like the Black Lives Matter movement, everything to happen is the stop is for the whites to literally go through what we go through. Because I had situations where maybe like a year ago, I was supposed to go to jail for snapping out on everybody in the school due to being racist, like comments and stuff going on in school. When I finally went to pop off and started trying to fight everybody, like teachers, students, everything, everybody wants to start paying attention. But when if I, like I shouldn't have to go this deep into going out of control for somebody to hear me. But when somebody is white, I'm white by the way, but when somebody is more white than me, when there's a bigger problem, it gets worse and people want to actually fix it. So I feel like if everybody that is white in this and say were to be treated the same way we're being treated, I feel like it would get a lot worse, because like who wants to be treated that way, and like there would be more problems. But I feel like the problem would drop down to a minimum because everybody's getting treated this way, and it feels like now we have to fix it because everybody's going through this now. So I feel like there'll be a better way for us. I feel like there'll be a better way for us to go to fix the problem, if that makes any sense. But yeah.
Experiential learning.
Yeah.
That's what they call that in different circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Other people? What does an equitable society, Keish?
For me, what an equitable society looks like is abolition. And for me, what abolition and revolution means to me is sustainability outside of the government. I believe in this capitalist society, we will always have a slave class. And I somewhat don't agree with what you're saying, because I think that as Black people, we have to keep our frequencies high. We have to keep our frequencies high. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to create somewhat of a race war, to where we're reaching low to their low. Hold up.
Sorry, we got all kinds of technical things going on here. Adley, go ahead and chime in, and then we'll let Keish finish before she can get back in.
Cool. So yeah, so the way that I view my perfect society, I mean, not perfect, but like better world. So I'm somebody who doesn't so like I said before, like I consider myself to be an anarcho-communist. So the way that I want things, if if they could, my wish is to be is to to have no form of public government. I mean, not public government, but like private fundings, private governments and stuff like that. I want, communal, I want everybody to just work together, have all the resources that we need, like food, shelter, healthcare, and all that good stuff. I want that to be available to everybody. And I want all these systems I want all oppressive systems to be abolished. I mean, that's kind of like the dream goal. But yeah, no, basically I guess I want to be in a world where everyone knows their culture, everybody can be connected to their culture, and we can express that. And and people have everything that they need, everything that they want, and regardless of gender identity, sex, and race and stuff like that, to have all equal opportunities for everybody to succeed, and that we have educational resources for everybody to learn about these new things, and just live as freely as we can without hurting anybody else. And to like that, I haven't really thought much about it, but that's what I have so far.
Well, I always say that we have to be able to envision it, to grab it. And so I hope you will continue to build your vision and help us do that as well. Keish, I know you had some technical difficulties, so we want to help you get back and restate your point.
Oh, yes. So to me, what the future look like is abolition. And what abolition means to me is basically a world where we're living sustainably outside of the government. That is the ecosystem, that is us owning land. And that's actually goes into somewhat of Pan-Africanism. But really, my idea is an anti-capitalist society that doesn't have this idea where somebody can conquer land and somebody can conquer that, but we're all gardening and we're all basically interacting with nature, where we're replenishing the earth, we're eating from the earth, and we're basically taking care of each other. And it's not an I, but it's a we. And from the point that Monni said, I don't know if I necessarily agree that we need to fight fire with fire, but I think that what they're trying to do is they're trying to bring us to a lower frequency, which is fear. And what they're trying to do is create a race war. And I think that as Black people, Black people from Africa, as people that are naturally have high frequencies, our frequencies, if you don't know what that is, our natural state of being is supposed to be love. It's supposed to be a God like being. But it's I think that we need to keep our frequencies high, and we should not interact with fear. And that's why I think that abolition through land is so radical, because it's not that we're shooting white people and destroying their race like they're doing to us, but it's more so we're replenishing the land and we're fighting back with land and nurturing, and we're doing it in a godlike way where we're creating and we're bringing back our divine femininity and masculinity back into ourselves, and we're basically just elevating ourselves spiritually, mentally, and we're basically creating a sustainable health system. Because of capitalism, our planet is dying, and this is our planet is dying, and the only way that we're going to heal is through love, because love is the ultimate healing frequency. But the only way that we're going to heal is if we go back to nature and go back to where we're from, and go and continue to elevate our frequencies, and not let people that are not on our levels take us down into those different frequencies. But like I said, last thing, I want to say that again, abolition to me is sustainability outside of the government. When people talk about abolition, don't change the perception of it being bad, of any negative stereotype. You need to erase that, because in the capitalist society, there will always be a slave class. As long as there is a constitution constitutes an institution. Therefore, the constitution is a living document. Therefore, if we continue in this capitalist society, we will always have a prison system. That's why we see it rebirth through slave trolls. That's why we see mass incarceration, basically the plantation. And yeah, that's that.
Keisha always gets a lot in a little bit of time. Thank you for that. We want to make sure we hear from our guests before we get back to the crew. So Colleen, do you have any thoughts about what an equitable society looks like?
I agree with Keisha and Adley 100%. That is exactly the type of world I'd want to live in. The only thing that I would add that they kind of implemented is if everyone kind of was all kind of completely empathetic and compassionate. That's all I would add.
Thank you. Ms. Andrea?
Well, I come from Nanny of the Maroons, child. Will we shoot them, bag them, and put them off our property? So I am right there with Kaleem around, empathy, kindness. But there has to be some level of equality here, because those who benefit from racism will not acknowledge the root, because they are the root. So we have to stop waiting for people to acknowledge what is happening and find ways to elevate ourselves and have the conversations. Not everybody should be invited into every conversation, right? And so to figure out like where we're going, and then and bind ourselves together to make those moves, because history has shown every time we've done it, like Keisha's saying, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Florida, all those places where we've banded together and done what we needed to do, there has to be some other systemic change beyond just doing that. The Constitution has to reflect it, and we have to start rooting out some of the craziness that's happening around us. I also think we need to go back to having schools that are for us, by us, because we're losing so much of our culture every single day.
A lot of food for thought. Is there anyone else from our regular Hear Us Out crew who wants to offer a statement about what an equitable society should look like? Summer?
So I just kind of want to add on to the point that Andrea just actually mentioned when it came to building schools that are for us and built by us. I think that we should also continue to provide resources to our communities specifically. I don't know if that sounds like I'm for segregation again, but honestly, I just think that it would be a lot more helpful, and I think we would see a lot more growth in the Black community if we just continue to provide more resources as the older people in our community started to go to college, and then they came back and they started to provide more resources and started to help younger students create connections and everything so that they can also move on and be successful as well. And I think that I don't think that there's anybody else out there who can really do that for us except for us. So that's kind of my vision.
Well, I want to take this opportunity to thank all of our guests today, to thank you all, but especially our guests for bringing some fresh thought front to some different perspectives to the conversations that we engage as a crew as we work on our show every other week on a regular basis. It's always good to check in with friends and other members of the community to hear what we should be considering as we think about topics, as we think about how we're going to go forth in the world and the changes that we'd like to see and make.
Hear us out. Hear us out. Hear us out. Hear us out.
Hear us out, man. Hear us out. 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 Yo, okay. Hear me out? No. Hear you out. Hear me out. Hear us out.